you learn success through failure. And if you can't learn from your failures, you're never going to be successful, because you're always going to keep that failure on the forefront of your mind, as opposed to going, what was the reason I failed today?
Right.
All right. And if you can learn from that, you're going to be okay. And if one of our boys has a bad race, I just tell them, there is another race, and you've got about 30 minutes to get over this one.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Being slouches.
We actually do have a full couch of coaches here. Chris is filling in for Bryant, who's gallivanting on a 5-day bike tour, raising money for cancer. Good cause. Those guys just finished up yesterday. That'll be our first shout out.
Shout out, Bryant.
Shout out to the Ride to Rosemary guys.
Enjoy the beach.
Enjoy the beach.
Well earned. Well earned.
So today we're talking to Nick Dwyer, MYA president, Memphis Youth Athletics, and cross-country track coach at Christian Brothers High School. And then our very own coach, Chris Winter. He's our head running coach, and between the two of them, there's about 30 years of cross country coaching experience.
Phew.
Couple of state titles in there. Mm-hmm. So a wealth of knowledge sitting here. Well, that might be
specific to what we're talking about.
But that's relative to the environment.
Right. So today we're talking about creating a successful cross country program. We'll get into that, but first, shout outs. So my first one will be the Ride to Rosemary guys. We already said that. My next one is Anya DeBellick. She hit her first Ironman Chattanooga. So she had a great day, went with the plan, and just had a solid day. And they had to cancel the swim at that race. Apparently,
I heard about that.
Apparently there was a code brown. There was a lot of, between the flooding and the upstream and whatnot, I believe the E. coli was like 20 times or something like that, higher than that's safe for people.
Yeah.
So
that's when everybody,
right.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a downriver swim, man. It's like a bob to the bike. Everybody's just floating in their wetsuits, and
it sounds like my type of swim.
You don't mess with the code brown.
You'd never mess with the code brown.
Never.
Chris, what you got?
I got a shout out to Anne-Marie Brace from Arlington High School, an athlete of mine. She's a 9th grader, and her first race of the season for cross country was at the Horton Invite, and she ran the JV race. She ran a 19:59, and so shout out to her. She won the JV race. And then also shout out to all those athletes who've qualified for MYA Elite, but more specifically to the ones who signed up for the program and are going to go race at Foot Locker over Thanksgiving weekend. Pumped about that.
Yeah, we're psyched about that program. I know you're.
Yeah, I am too. I'm looking forward to it. I've been to that meet 5 or 6 times. I've actually raced that course myself. It's a good, fast course, and it's a true 5K, so you can go there and run a 5K, much like the course here at Shelby Farms, and know that it's actually 5 kilometers long. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. It'll be a great program.
We can tell.
Mm-hmm.
What you got, Nick? You got any shout outs?
Oh man, our MYA volunteers. So we pulled off the first night meet at Shelby Farms, which is it was epic. Let's just put it into words. It was epic. And you got Kevin Rainey, John Payne, Doc Hudsmith, all those good folks that helped us put that race together. Shelby Farms was a great host for that, and I just can't say enough about the people that really boost up and allow me to stand on their shoulders. So kudos to them.
I was there. It was legit. It was one of my favorite night races I've ever been to. Maybe
legit.
It was lit.
It was legit.
Nice.
Nice.
It's surprising there.
I've heard it's going to be the premier night race from this point forward.
Well, we're not looking to take over the Twilight series, but we look forward to grow exponentially over the next few years for sure.
I think
anybody out there that wants to contribute to that,
there you go.
come talk to me.
Yeah. Literally thousands and thousands of people out at it for over a 2-day period.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was cool. All right, so today we're talking about creating a successful cross-country program. And basically we're going to break it down into the 3 things that you guys feel are paramount to creating a successful program. So I'll let you lead off here, Nick. What is the number 1 thing?
Oh man, the first thing I tell coaches to begin to create is a good team culture, and there's a lot that surprises people. They go, well, we need the good workouts. It's no, you need to get to know your athletes, and you need to create that bond between your athletes and coach for sure.
Absolutely. There's a guy out there. His name's Dr. Kevin Elko, and he actually, I mean, that's like his specialty is creating team culture, winning culture. I mean, that's like his. That's how he makes his living is teaching. He works with the Philadelphia Eagles, University of Alabama. He's works with all those winners.
They're pretty successful.
Yeah, they're a little
I
successful.
think they do pretty well.
So that I can't stress enough how important it is to have, if you have a group of people together, how important that culture is. And one of the big things is kind of knowing the needs and goals of your athletes when you say.
Absolutely.
Because they're not all the same.
no.
Never the same.
When I was coaching at Houston High School, my assistant coach, Lauren Paquette, she's a
Shout out, Lauren.
Shout out, Lauren. Good luck at the New York 5K. But Lauren studied sports psychology, and I think she has her master's in it. And we had her sit down with each kid and talk about their goals and their expectations for the season. She took notes, and she and I were able to review those. And that way we had it on paper, in front of us all season long, what each kid's goals were and then what their needs were, which are, obviously different from kid to kid, but needs are different than goals. And so we were able to work from that and, talk to them about, if they felt like they were on target for it, what we needed to do different. And so you can kind of work with your athlete in that regard, and that helps generate that culture because they feel more a part of the process. So,
yeah, then you can't, without knowing what your athletes need, it's really hard to then put together kind of a set of expectations for them. And I would say that'd be another really important factor of creating team culture is just being very clear with what your as the coach, what your expectations are for the athletes, the team as a whole, and then for getting the work done and everything else. Yeah. So be clear with your expectations, and then fostering team-wide accountability. So Nick, I'll let you go into a little bit about how you go about that.
Absolutely. Once you have the the roadmap in front of you, it's holding to that roadmap. And as a coach, if you want to stay in this game long enough, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you've got to find a way to have your team hold itself accountable. They're going to rely on you in the beginning to kind of figure out, okay, this is how I'm going to get here. Now I've got to hold myself to this because you only see your athletes, 1 or 2 hours a day. If you're an extreme, coach that you see them sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, you might see them 3 hours out of the 24. But the point is, the rest of the time they've got to spend that on their own. They got to spend that time on their own. So they've got to hold themselves accountable to hydration, nutrition, sleep. They got to keep their homework up. And they got to find that internally. They got to be internally motivated. They can't rely on the coach to always be externally motivating them. And the other group that helps those athletes hold themselves accountable are the teammates. If you got a good teammate, he's going to tell you or she's going to tell you, hey, coach the other day said that we should be doing this, this, and this, and you're over here doing that, without creating conflict. And there's a delicate balance in there. But teaching your team how to hold itself accountable, and more importantly, if they're motivated and they have goals, they should want to stay on the roadmap to get where they want to go.
Yeah, if those team expectations are set there, the team goals, expectations, those things kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
But if everybody buys into that, then the accountability factor, accountability part is a lot easier. And then, like you're saying, you have a few like team captains or older athletes or whomever, who are kind of those like coaches within the group, kind of,
Yep.
the assistant coaches within the team that actually are kind of holding the next level down accountable.
Yeah.
And then the few upper level people on those in that group hold the next level, and then everybody's kind of holding each other accountable.
Yeah, it's a cascade effect for sure.
Yeah. So I would say in creating the team culture, everybody has to buy into it. And then, each athlete kind of needs to know how to handle success and failure.
Mm-hmm.
So like, Chris, how would you go about kind of with a group? The group dynamic throws a wrench in everything. So how would you go about teaching kids mostly how to handle success and failure of cross-country racing?
Well, success, I think it starts with knowing what success is for the group as a whole, and then what success would be for each individual each athlete on your team. I've had a lot of kids whose high school running cross country was defined by they wanted to win the state title. There was a year at USJ, I had a girl who lost it by a small public school. She lost it by a stride right at the finish. I mean, it was like less than a tenth of a second that she lost it. And so to her season on that big picture was somewhat of a failure because she wanted to win. But at the same time, there are successes and small successes within that along the way. I think you have to set kind of micro goals throughout the season for your team to hit, and it can't be always performance based. If you set small goals within your season as a team, then that can help foster the culture. I mean, one of the goals can be, if you're having problems getting kids to practice, set a goal of, but we want to have every single person at practice on this day. And if you guys do that, then X can happen.
Sure.
I'll do this for you. We'll have a popsicles after practice one day. And individually, I think, it would depend again on knowing the athlete themselves and what they value as successful and what they value as not. I mean, most kids are going to want to try to run faster from race to race. And so that's the most tangible thing. And if they don't, then they can see themselves as a failure. So you have to teach them about the running itself, and how do you judge a race on a completely flat course when it feels great outside and you're not battling an injury, to you're running, it's 90 degrees out and there's tons of hills, it's a rough course and you've been feeling sick. How do you get them to learn themselves that there's value in both? I mean, I just think you have to, that's a process, and it's a real face-to-face thing that you work through with kids. So in my experience, it's it's taken time, and it's taken micro goals and personal conversations with kids, and then reminding them of what their overall goals for the season are. Just letting them know that they're on track.
I mean, one big thing that I'm pulling out of there is you've got to talk to your athletes.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
you got to talk to your athletes out of the practice setting.
Yeah,
because as coaches, we all have we have practice coach, and we have everything outside.
Mm-hmm.
When we're in the field of play, in the zone, we're a completely different person, and you have to be.
Yeah.
And when you step out of that, the athletes need to know that there is basically two different people there. And so you come out of the practice setting and you can actually have a conversation with them and figure out, what's going on with them outside of running, because it's really hard to understand the needs of an athlete if all you understand is their goals within running.
Yeah.
Or their needs within running.
Yeah, and I think it's really important too to let them know that it is okay to fail. Like it is, and it's all right to feel bad if you do fail. To let yourself do that. I mean, I've had girls I've coached at USJ that would be in tears after a 2-mile race because they missed qualifying for state by one place, and you just have to sit there with them and say, "I understand it hurts," and just let it hurt. It's okay that you feel bad, and take 24. One thing I would tell them is just take 24 hours. But by this time tomorrow, be over it and be regrouping on other things in your life, because you're not just an athlete, you're not just a runner.
Right.
So I just think,
and you've coached more girls than I have. I coach just boys, so we have a 30-minute rule. we learn success. My big,
rule,
and I echo that. You learn success through failure, and if you can't learn from your failures, you're never going to be successful, because you're always going to keep that failure on the forefront of your mind, as opposed to going, what was the reason I failed today?
Right.
All right. And if you can learn from that, you're going to be okay. And if one of our boys has a bad race, I just tell them, there is another race, and you've got about 30 minutes to get over this one. And once they get used to that, they go, you know what? I take what I need from here, and then I move forward with it. I don't dwell on it, and it's not going to affect the next thing I do, because that did not define my season.
Right.
And so frequently you see the devastation of an athlete not qualifying for an event that they've been training for. But as a whole, it's been a successful season, because they've just dropped so much time and been so successful. And it's just the brutal part about running is, if you're not on that day, sometimes it's just not going to happen. And the longer the race, the more likely that does affect you. But they learn so much more through falling down and getting up. And running is it counters the technology generation we live in now, because it just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And success does not happen overnight, through running, unless you're just one of those special kids.
Yeah. And I think one thing I've noticed, I've lived in Memphis for 5 years, and they've been around running since it's kind of blown up here in the past 3 or 4 through MYA and these bigger meets. Is I see a lot of kids running, and they're incredibly concerned with their time. Mm-hmm. Am I running faster week to week? And I fear that as coaches, we can get myopic in defining success as, did I PR in this race? I think that one of the first things you can tell your team in terms of how to handle success and failure is, you're not going to PR every single time you race. You just aren't going to do it. If you are, what's the point in training?
But did you win?
Did
you get second?
Yeah.
Did you get third?
Yeah. So I think one thing coaches can do is to train their kids with the long term in mind about races. So to teach them that they don't, and this sounds weird, but they don't have to go all out every single race all the time. Certain races can serve a training purpose for them that will benefit the team and will benefit them in the long run, so they're not burnt out by the end of the year. I mean, even for an 8th grade kid, 9th, 10th grade kid, it's really hard to race 6, 7, 8 all-out 5Ks within a season and train. And
absolutely.
Sometimes you get a Friday night, and then
turn around
Monday or back on Tuesday. So you've got to, as a coach,
it's a balance.
Yeah, it's a balance. You want them to run fast, but you don't want them to think that everything is defined in terms of PR. I mean, there was a great thing that happened at the end of the MYA meet this past Tuesday.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
That was fantastic, and that was, no kid could have PR'd in that race, and that would have been a successful thing for the entire MYA season.
What Chris is referring to, he had a young lady, Jordan from Millington Middle, who was racing her first 2 mile ever, and for her, who knows what obstacle, how tall that mountain looked, but what was neat is at the end of that race, and we've seen this happen a couple times, and it's an aha moment, like, this is why we're doing what we do. All of the kids began to herd across the field, and what they were doing is they were lifting up what wasn't even their teammate. It was another person from another team. They were going and lifting up this person and cheering Jordan all the way into the finish. And for that young lady, that may have been a game changer for her, and that's why we do what we do at Memphis Youth Athletics. But that is an example of the culture that we're trying to breed at Memphis Youth Athletics that hopefully transcends and catches on with teams, and coaches realize that this is so much bigger than just running and PRs. It's about these kids coming together from all ends of the spectrum and lifting each other up, and a lot of us adults could learn a lot from that. Yeah. So it's part of the culture.
Yeah, I saw the video of it. It was it's kind of you get to some extent as a coach, you get chills seeing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And that's, like you said, it's teaching. That's like a teaching moment right there on the whole community aspect to running and to the camaraderie of being on a cross-country team or a running team in any type of a team. That's the kind of thing that transcends running.
Yep.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. We spent a lot of time on culture. That's probably the biggest thing of creating a successful program. But as the coach of a program, one of the huge things that we talked about prior to starting the broadcast here was you have to educate yourself. Like you can't turn into this. You read a book. This is how it goes, and you use this same program, this same system year after year after year after year. You have to keep learning, and you have to learn from everyone. You have to understand that there's no special workouts, like you said before. There's no secret workouts. You can basically mix intensity and duration in any way you want to achieve the same goal. And, you just have to know how to use those, that intensity and duration, and turn that into a workload. And that's how you manipulate. You just got to manipulate workload. That's really all it is. It's not rocket science. But you have to educate yourself on how that works and how that affects each athlete. And then you have to know how specific workloads affect different athletes. So there's a huge, for the youth teams, elementary and middle school, a lot of these coaches are completely volunteer. And so it's a lot of time they're spending on coaching the team alone, let alone going and educating themselves more and more and more on proper coaching and knowing what is too much for a youth age athlete, what's too much volume, what's too much intensity. So I mean, it's just kind of where the big gap comes in. We have coaches that are completely volunteer. They're giving a lot of their time, which is fantastic, because they really are helping build the running community as a whole and build athletes who love running and want to keep doing it and want to keep active. I mean, that's the baseline levels. We want these kids to stay active. But learning to coach is more time involvement. So I would just say, if you can, if you're a athletic director of a school or somebody who manages all of the different extracurriculars or something, if you can find a way to help that coach to educate themselves more, that the coach is going to be better, the program is going to be better for it, and then the program over years and years to come is going to be better because you've invested in that coach. So one of the last big things I would say on educating yourself as the coach is just know why you're telling somebody to do something.
Oh yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine. Well, we're going to do this today, and then they get mad when an athlete or a parent or whomever, a client, asks you, well, why are we doing this workout? As a coach, you should always know why you're assigning a workout. What stimulus are you applying to this athlete to get what response out of that athlete? What are you ultimately trying to get out of them? Always know why you're doing a workout, not just because you read it in a book and we're supposed to do it on this day. It's a poor recipe for success.
Track Tuesday, right?
Yep, every time.
Track workout Tuesday?
Yeah.
Workout Wednesday.
Even if you feel like mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the education process, but you're manipulating intensity and duration and recovery. And when you do those three things, you create a stimulus that could be enough or not enough to create adaptation. And but you have to know what each intensity is going for, what you're going for when you're giving somebody longer duration. You gotta educate yourselves on the whys, and that's huge as far as being a coach that's going to run a successful program. Now the last one, the last piece of the puzzle here, you've kind of already talked about it a little bit. Rome wasn't built in a day. A successful program is not going to be built overnight. And a successful program can't revolve around one athlete. Let's not forget. I think this is something that maybe you could disagree with me, but especially in like the elementary, middle school, I think a lot of coaches lose the fact that cross country is a team sport.
Yep.
So, like Chris was saying, every race does not have to be run all out, and it's not. But you could have athletes that run together to better the times of your ringer. Your ringer
absolutely.
athlete can run with some of the slower athletes to pace them and hopefully, increase the placings and times of multiple people on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great example of how you can blend longevity and education. I mean, not to say that high school kids and middle school kids are the same as collegiate, but you can learn a lot from those cultures and those practices by watching how college teams structure their season, so they're racing the fastest by the end of the year. And I think a majority of them coaches and athletes would say that, if they're running and racing beside their teammates, then they're going to stick with that race and that plan. It's a lot easier for them because they know that person beside them's done a majority of the workouts with them. They know that they can finish if they have that person on their team right there, and that person's not trying to race them. They're not trying to necessarily one-up them maybe until, the last, 2, 3, 4 minutes of the race. But, I think as a coach, before you even decide to start coaching, you've got a lot of them, like we said, are volunteers, and so there might be parents, and so it might, exactly. So it might be like I can do this for 1 year, and then next year they're going to find somebody else. And so, I mean, the long haul, I think, is different from person to person, but, make sure that you're committed to, I would say, at least a year of working with that school. And if you can give it more time, then you're going to see better results because, people are going to adapt to the way you do things over time. And it just takes time to build successful programs.
Absolutely.
So
it goes into creating that culture. I mean, if you can commit to that organization for 1 season, 2 season, 3, I mean, the longer you're there, the more that culture just gets ingrained in everything that team does.
Yeah,
and people know before they even get started with you, like the expectations, all the little things that go into being on that team. It's already known. I mean, I know when I was in high school, going into high school as a freshman, the football coach that we had there has been there for 20 years. So you knew exactly what you were getting. I'm sure a lot of people, when they come to Christian Brothers to run, they know, before they even get there, they know exactly what they're getting with Coach Nick.
Mm-hmm. Good and bad.
The good, the bad, and the
everything
ugly.
in between.
But, Chris, you were talking about, before this, longevity-wise, creating traditions.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that what are some ideas there as far as what a coach can do to create traditions, or what traditions have you created over the years?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I started when I was at the last at USJ in Jackson was, it would be one meet. I did it one time or a couple of times, I believe, but
it doesn't sound like a tradition.
Well, we started it, then I moved.
Well, that's relative.
No, that one's not necessarily relative, but I think something you could do is like me, like I have no problem buzzing my head on my own and shaving my head, right? So I told our team at one meet, I was like, look, if we beat this team this year, whenever we beat this team, you guys can shave my head at practice.
Is that when you had the Marcel Kittle haircut?
No, I was in Memphis at that point. Okay. No, that was a great haircut. That's before I started going bald. I don't do Kittle anymore. Can't do the Kittle if you're balding. So that was one of them. Something funny that they thought they were making me look bad and doing something to me that made me feel uncomfortable, and I have no problem shaving my head.
Right.
One thing can be a specific type of chant you do, something simple like that before each meet. Another thing can be, like where you eat the night before a home meet, where we're all going to get together and hang out. At Houston, the girls team, all the girls on the team would get together the night before if we were traveling away, and they would go in a hotel room and they would do their own visualization practices, and that was something they did. So it's small little things that they don't have to be these big elaborate things. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. I've had kids develop their own traditions on a team. There were 2 girls at USJ that whenever they passed somebody, they ran side by side most of the time at all the races, and they had like a specific handshake, or it wasn't bad or vulgar or anything, but when they passed somebody, they would do they'd five each other behind their back, like behind the person's back, and then when they pass them in front, and they would do just things like that. So
that's rough.
Yeah, I didn't tell them.
You didn't like getting passed, huh?
I didn't tell them to do
What are
that.
some of the things that you guys do at CBHS?
Traditionally, we've got team dinners that all the guys organize themselves. They just know that that's part of being on that team is taking the team and having ownership with it, which is seniors are creating opportunities to hang outside, whether it's bowling, whether it's a movie, whether it's a dinner. It all goes into the culture. The big thing for us is it's a tradition to get together on Saturdays and do our long run, and that's always been the day. It's outside of what most people do, which is on Sundays. We got little things like that. We remember certain teammates for certain reasons, and some of that's just internal. Some of that stuff we don't share with everybody, and that's okay too. Not everybody has to know your traditions. It just needs to be within your team. It's a tradition to have a parents' tent and a kids' tent on race day, and our parents know that, and it's okay. It's a wonderful thing to have split up on race days. Yeah. But traditions are wonderful because it holds the expectations high, and it remembers the success you've had over the years, and we keep trying to fill the traditions that Coach Horton set so long ago. We keep chasing that state title, but hopefully this year with this group we can do that. But traditionally, year in, year out, we're a very blue-collar team, and we help other teams hopefully realize that there's more to this than just running. And I'm big with that with our runners. We get to know them outside of running, and that's always been a big thing for me as a tradition, personal tradition, and that's what you can have as a coach. I've got a personal tradition of getting to know everybody on the team and getting to know them at the level of outside of running. I want to know what makes this kid tick. I want to know if he's good at, he plays the guitar, he's an artist, if he likes theater, if he's, the valedictorian, whatever. I want to know some hidden talent about the kid. That's my own personal tradition. So,
I just thought of another one. It was real small, but at all the programs I've worked with, when we're finishing practice and after they've cooled down and we're doing some stretching at the end, we just talk, and kids would share what the highlight of their day was. It was something simple like that, and they expected it. They just expected it. And so by midway through the season, into the season, sometimes I would intentionally say, just to see if they've caught on to it yet or not, I would say, all right, that's it. You're good to go. And they'd be like, hey, wait a minute, we haven't done highlight of the day yet. Because they liked it, Or like I would always say at the end of practices, be sure to, eat your Wheaties and take your vitamins and eat your Wheaties. Well, at the end of the year banquet, at Houston, they gave me like a box of Wheaties as a gift and put a face of me over Steph Curry's face on the Wheatie box holding a towel. It's kind of like a joke, So part of me was like, that's funny, and part of me was like, is this mockery to a degree? But they remember what you
flattery.
say. It's flattery. So they remember what you say, and they're gonna if they like it, and that's how you know somebody's buying in, is if you kind of trick them, and see if they remember that stuff.
And tradition should be carried on by the team, and not necessarily, I don't have to remind the team every year of every tradition we have. It's passed down from the seniors to the juniors to the freshmen,
right?
Every single year,
and check on that.
That's a real tradition.
Yeah, and check on, like, if you're taking over a new program or you're an athletic director hiring a new coach.
Great point.
Ask the kids, hey, what did you really like about the previous program? What are things you did consistently? What traditions did you have? Because they're gonna know you're the coach and that you're the kind of the leader of the team in most regards, but they're also going to want to kind of keep doing some of the same things that they did before, in terms of, dinners the night before, or, shaving their coach's head. That coach might veto that one, but I would just ask. I would just ask.
Sorry, guys.
Just ask the kids, if you're taking over a new program, like what they liked about the previous one.
Yeah.
Sweet. I think we would all agree above all else, you got to keep it fun.
Yeah.
Oh man, running's hard.
I mean, yeah.
Running's hard enough as it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that one cycling video that I see all the time. It's like a junior development team, and the sportifs in the car, and the kid comes back to the car and he's like complaining about it being cold and this, that, and the other, and the sportif's like, "This sport sucks. Just go, get back up in there.
Yeah,
Go
it won't be
faster,
so
you'll
cold
warm
if
up."
we'll
Yeah.
pedal faster
Like-
and you won't be as cold.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you got to keep it fun, but you know that stuff helps you, you know, get past all the times where it's really friggin' hard.
Yeah.
And you know, allows you to push yourself a little bit more beyond those really dark moments.
Yeah, let's face it, you got to go to dark places if you want to be a successful runner, and successful is defined in many different ways. But I think if you have a great family surrounding you, they help you get through those dark places, whether it's in a race or where you're running consecutive bad races in your mind. Your family, your team is the one that holds you up, and that's the greatest tradition of all is can you pass down that loving, caring environment to each team, so that when the next generation of runners come in, they know that they're no longer from, you know, whatever schools they came in through. They're a part of this program now, and their expectations are meant to be this, and they know immediately, you know, what the coach is expecting, and that culture is just built, and it continues to go year after year after year.
Right.
Really independent of whoever's taking over the program. If they're a good coach, they're going to come in and they're going to ask a lot about the program. They're going to interview the kids, the parents, the previous coach, things like that if they can, and that's the longevity of it. You know, it's if you're going to be a distance coach, you got to be in for the long haul.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one thing I can think of on kind of as keeping it fun was, I don't really think it's an awesome idea for coaches to run all their workouts with kids and run with them all the time. Sometimes it's okay. Most of the time I would think, you know, just observe and whatnot. But I think, you know, it is fun every now and then if you're a coach, if you jump in, it's like on a short rep. I mean, this made running fun for me. Our coach didn't run with us a lot, but if we were doing 300s in track, he would jump in with his loafers and khakis on, and the coach could run. I mean, he could roll. And you were like, okay, if you guys beat me on this one, we're done. If you don't, you got to finish. And I mean, that just makes it a little bit more fun, you know, for the kid. Look up ways to do the same workouts with a little bit different twist to it. You know, whether or not you're using a workout to get a specific result or not, you can still kind of twist it some to get that same result. So you can make things fun in running, and I mean, kids will stick around for it. They know it's going to be hard. I mean, it's just the nature of it. But
yeah,
awesome. I think there's a lot of good information in there, fellas. If you guys have any questions for Chris or Nick, you can get in touch with us or hit them up directly via MYA or Chris through our website. Appreciate you guys coming.
I don't know. Thanks for having me.
We'll have you on again sometime.
Appreciate it.
We'll catch you guys later. Adios.